on to Phoenix's favorite topic of the week that we keep talking about. Let's move over. So we're going to talk about Halo, the TV series episode. I guess we don't have to take it on each episode. I mean, well, go in order. You can just talk about whatever you want with the episodes 4 and 5. You did get to watch them both, correct? I think you said you did.
I watched them, yes.
Cool. Shoot.
You go first. I had to start the past 2 of these, so.
I don't even know where to start when it comes to talking this show. I guess I'll talk straight about... I felt like episode 4 was kind of boring. I almost don't even want to talk about that one. Episode 5 is...
You got the house, right?
Yeah. Episode 4 kind of delves deeper into what Kai's got going on, into what Master Chief's his origins of how he got into the Spartan program, and then more about the crappy Quan character. You know what? I talked myself into it. I'm going to skip episode 4. Well, now we kind of have it labeled 4 and 5. I don't know. I'll kind of go straight into 5 first. 5
Hold on. Don't just skip over 4. I think this is actually really interesting. You and me take a very opposite interest in what kind of episodes we like. I liked 4.
Did you? Okay.
Probably more than 5. Like, I like the slow episodes because you get some character building.
See, I
I'm not saying I love everything about them. And 5, you're right, it's far more action, and I figured you were going to like that better. So I don't know. I like
Halo. Halo is...
liked is a bad word. I don't know if I like the show, but I preferred 4.
I don't know. There's just so many, like... I feel like my biggest problem with this show is, we've mentioned it before, but the writing. And it's funny because, again, I've watched tons of Red Letter Media videos on all the Star Trek stuff, and they say the exact same things about those shows. The writing is so poor, and they're not very thorough. It's not really like... It's labeled sci-fi, but it's not like deep sci-fi. It's not like
very surface
intelligent sci-fi. It's just sci-fi. You know what I mean? And those guys have said it so many times for Picard and Discovery, where it's like you're writing sci-fi, but it's not like when you play Mass Effect, when whenever we play Mass Effect, like there's all this lore, there's all this codex entries for like every little thing, and it's just like I don't feel like that's intelligently done in this show. Like something.
Oh, okay. To be fair, it's hard to compare the writing in a 40 hour
video game. Yeah.
To a hour-long show, if that. Now, I don't disagree with the idea, though, that they don't do enough writing to do some good world building. I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Mm-hmm. This game is kind of weird. This show, because they want, I think, and I could be very wrong on this. It's like they expect you to be a big enough Halo fan that you can bring in your appreciation of the lore and the world building that you already have into this show, so they don't have to do that work for you. Like, they're like, okay, so you already know about Halo, you already know about Cortana, you know these things, so this is all we're going to give you. So they go really surface level on that kind of stuff. But then they'll turn around, basically ignore key parts of lore, change it completely. It's kind of like they want their cake and eat it too kind of thing, right? So they won't do, I think, enough of their own world building. Like, sometimes they will, or they'll... I don't know. It's hard with a show, especially this early on, because you don't know if they're going to go back and elaborate at some point or try to beef it up. But with the Cortana program, that was pretty light, I think. Granted, they are trying to explain it more. I don't know. I go back and forth on the show, Chaz. Oh, man. But I agree with your general statement of the writing is hit or miss, I'll just say the least.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll just touch on a few things from episode 4 that I just thought were bad. Again, talking about kind of the bad sci-fi, like seeing Chief land on the planet Eridanus 2, like he to find the stuff that he has that's buried underground, he uses a shovel. It's like all the technology in the future, and you guys are using shovels.
It's really funny because right before that moment, he's like, "Okay, let's dig." Immediately, when we said them, he's not going to use a shovel. He's got some interesting, weird Halo sci-fi way to dig.
No, he gets a shovel.
And then And then it cuts to the next scene. He's just like, "Don't."
Yeah, it's like, dude, like these guys are like, this is like hundreds of years in the future. You know, it's just like,
I don't know what, like, I figured they could, like, scan the ground and they could see
yeah, they don't
exactly what's under
have.
the earth, and, they'd have this tool that would, excavate it from the ground. I don't know. It was an odd moment. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's like you don't have item finders. You don't have metal detectors. Like
Well,
that
what's
can.
funny too is it's probably multiple games, but things like ODST, I know you could do like that HUD view where you could like basically see through walls
Oh,
and
that's so
outlines of
cool. I love
people.
that when they do that. Yeah.
So you don't think, and this is close to that time. Well, I guess it's earlier than that, but still, you got to think they have some kind of preliminary version of that technology at the very least, where he could have his helmet on. Which put your darn helmet on for one. But
Is
you
that the
think
episode
through,
where he puts it on and then takes it off 10 seconds later?
yeah, he puts it on to get out of the ship to go onto the planet, and then gets onto the planet and takes it right back
Ugh.
off.
Oh, I
But
have
either
it
way,
on
yeah,
my notes. Yeah.
yeah, he should have that scanning technology in his HUD, so he could look down, he could see something's buried X amount of feet under there. Like,
hmm
no, that was very weak and kind of a contrived moment.
I also, in my notes for that same scene, not only is it annoying, but it's very stupid considering that planet has been quarantined for like everyone dying apparently from some virus. Why would you have your helmet off if you're on like a formerly quarantined planet? It makes no sense.
Because this show does not trust us to connect with Master Chief if you can't see his face. Even when I know I'm jumping ahead to episode 5, but even now, when he's in his suit, they're still showing you his face underneath it. It's like,
Yeah.
they can't trust for this guy to emote. And here's the thing, I don't think it's the actor's fault. Like, I am slowly coming around to this actor. Like, I don't necessarily love him yet, but I don't think he's doing a bad job with what he has. And I feel like he could probably make the, Mandalorian style never take the helmet thing probably work for Master Chief
All right, we get
if
it.
they
You
gave him the
wanna
opportunity
you
to.
wanna see him as Wolverine? We get it.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. This is, and I'm just going to kind of give a general opinion here on the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten to the point where I don't really like dislike this show. There's parts of it I kind of like. I'm not sure if I like him from a Halo perspective. I like this kind of just like a general sci-fi show. Now, is the writing great? No, but I like just watching kind of a C-level sci-fi show sometimes, and just has some interesting little beats and some cool moments, and I'm okay with that. And this show is starting to kind of fall into that category for me. What makes it so hard is just the fact that it's wearing this Halo skin,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically the Master Chief skin. Like, I think I would be probably mostly amicable towards this show if it wasn't about Chief.
Would you
If-
would you like it more if it was just called like Reach, and maybe there was no chief and it followed like some other Spartan?
yeah, I mean, I don't care what they call it. I mean, they can even probably still call it Halo and not be about Master Chief right now. I mean, I just wish it. I don't know. My biggest thing is I don't feel like this Chief is Chief, and I've
He's
said that
not.
before. It's not that I don't like the character stuff they're doing with this character. I don't want to call him Chief anymore. Just this Spartan. I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's being acted poorly. Like, all of that I think is mostly fine. If this was just some other Spartan going through this identity crisis and figuring out what happened to him, I'd be fine with that. I'd be okay with the emotional moments and all of that, like as far as him, losing his cool. But the fact that this is the Master Chief, and I'm not even, here's the thing, maybe I've come across this way in our past conversations, I am not some big Halo nerd. I have played the games,
Me neither.
mainline ones, and that's really it. I don't read the books, I don't dig into every, audio log or whatever the, lore elements are inside of all the games. I just like Halo passingly.
We're in that
But
same
I,
boat, pretty much.
yeah, but I've played all the games and I've got a good feel for how Master Chief is portrayed in the games. He's this very just kind of, I don't want to say solemn, but he's a very cool, even-keeled soldier. He has his moments where I think personality shines through. Like, it's not like he has no personality. He tells jokes, he interacts with people, but
Mm-hmm.
he never gets emotional. He always seems like things are relatively well planned out.
He never
or
wants
at
to
least
fly through the air and punch someone to death.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. Here's the thing too. Like, if this wasn't Master Chief, I don't feel like that would be some outrageous response. Like, if this was just some soldier took out his personality chip or whatever and found this out, he'd probably be pissed and want to punch her in the face.
I thought it was so funny seeing him like, and trying to punch someone. I don't know.
It was, but I could at least. Here's the thing. I get it. I get where they're going with that reaction. That just should never be Chief's reaction. Like, someone who's acting like that, I don't think can ever become the Chief from our, the line of games that we know. And assuming that this show is going to want to move forward into those, moments from the games, I'm assuming because this show is called Halo, they're going to get to a Halo at some point, right? And then you're really lining up with actual moments from the game. So maybe this is just going to stay completely, off in left field and never really match up with those moments. But I feel like it's just going to be some weird, just uncanny valley the entire time going through as they go through whatever the events of Halo 1 are and Halo 2. It's just never going to feel right. Yeah. And that, I think, is what I'm so nervous about. Like, right now, it's so early on, I'm open-ish to it.
Well, it really sucks because I feel like they could do the opposite of what you're saying, where they could do something that feels Halo, looks Halo, because they have the enemies down, look awesome. I actually kind of like the costumes. They're a bit funky, but I can deal with that. They have some of the voice act. They have Cortana. Like, they're doing everything where, in my opinion, they should be able to do that, but they're just not. I don't know. Again, yeah. But what were you saying? Sorry, I feel like I cut you off.
No, I was ranting. I'm sorry. This show just makes me feel so many different things for so many different reasons. I think it's because, like, I don't dislike the show. Like, I'm slowly starting to, I've watched enough of it now. I'm pseudo invested in where it's going to go.
Any show, though. Once you watch enough of it, you kind of have to. You get intrigued.
Got low spots in the story, but I think in general most of the acting is relatively good, and I think that helps. The writing is a little meh, but the acting I think is pretty solid. I do like what they're doing with the Kai character.
I like Kai. I wrote that on my notes. She's might be one of my favorite characters in the show.
And what I like about it is because I'm coming at her as a blank slate. Like, I don't know if she's a character in the games or lore or not. Maybe she is, maybe she's not. But she's not someone iconic like Master Chief. So they can do a lot more with her. She's not going to affect my interpretation of the lore moving forward. And they can really dig into her psyche and her stance on things.
Like you were saying, because she's kind of a blank slate, not only that, but I feel like she's the best representation of a video game character, where she's asking questions that a video game person playing a game would ask. Like, when that whole scene she has where she's talking to the Spartan, and she's like, do you ever I don't remember what she says exactly. She says, do you ever ask questions?
Why?
Do you ever ask why? And he's like, no. And she's like, do you ever ask why you don't ask why? And he's like, you know what I mean? Like, those are questions that someone playing a game or a TV show would, like, legitimately think about,
And I do like this angle, because here's the thing, like, and this is, I'm pretty sure, fairly canonical as far as the games go. The UNSC was not always good. I mean, they look good in, the context of fighting off the Covenant, but they're this big military organization that kind of does what they want when they want and kind of have, overbearing force. So they do have that negative connotation from the back of the lore, and that's being portrayed here. Halsey is just a really researched, focused kind of, I don't know, I don't want to use any inappropriate terms for her, but I mean, I think she's mostly fitting to how she would be in the books and the lore as well.
Someone who has an agenda with almost anything they're doing. It makes sense. Like, she's not the problem I have, really.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at, I'm probably, talking around myself here at this point, but I like how they're digging into that story, really, about early UNSC, how they weren't, looked at so fondly, and some of the, scandal and controversy and stuff kind of going on behind the scenes. That's interesting. And I understand that Chief would have been wrapped up in that too. I just don't like the responses they're making this Chief have. And that's what takes me out of this whole thing, unfortunately.
Well, I guess I'll just, real quick, I want to wrap up episode 4. There was just, like, little couple points. I still feel like the character Quan and her side plot is dragging this show down even further than
Yeah.
Like that, anytime it cuts away to that Madrigal stuff, I could really care less about what's happening. Like that's literally my moment to like look away and do something. But
Yeah.
I feel like again I have it in my notes. Quan, she does the absolute most possible to draw attention to herself. The scene where she's at the funeral for her dad and she's just like, no, 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 you're all bad. We need to fight back. And all these people, it's just like, ugh. She's a horrifically bad written character. I have nothing against the actor. The writing for her is just terrible. And that whole side plot, it's like, what does that plot have to do with Halo? Like, even if that character goes on to bring back the Resistance and make everything good on her side, how does any of that benefit the Master Chief's war against the Covenant? It doesn't. A resistance group on some desert planet is not going to help Master Chief, or it shouldn't. How? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure they will conveniently and possibly contrivedly tie that all together somehow. Like,
am I wrong though?
Be...
Is there any way that...
I don't disagree. I agree that is the weakest part and the slowest part. And here's I like
Soren. He's a cool character.
Yeah. So I am glad they at least paired her up with him. Mm-hmm. He helped, but I mean, you're right. This is the low part of the show. But I'm sure it's probably going to end up with her somehow taking over the Resistance and them helping Chief.
How?
In a moment when
in the games, down. There is no Resistance. There is no like.
Well, here's the thing. This is happening at an interesting moment. It's like right before the Fall of Reach. So, I mean, granted, I haven't read a lot of the books, as I mentioned, but this is kind of a blind spot for me in Halo history. So, who's to say there isn't a Resistance? Like, I mean, it's arguable that could be the case. So, I'm not going to say that's not feasible. I don't know how it's going to tie into Chief's overarching, narrative. I just don't know.
The only two ways that the Resistance should its plot should go is they either end up joining the UNSC and becoming part of the UNSC, or they all die off. I don't see a way that they could continue on with that side plot. Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I don't know.
Well, I guess one last thing I just wanted to mention for episode 4. I found it really dumb that Miranda, if she even says it herself, but like, I find it so incredibly stupid that they're just now thinking about learning the Covenant language. It's just like, dude, you this whole time that the all these scientist teams and Halsey, this whole time now someone has the idea of looking into the language of the Covenant and the elites. It's like that should have been something you guys looked into a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And one more thing I had for episode 4. That Madrigal villain sucks. He's a horrible character. I didn't enjoy seeing his rear end in the hot tub. It's just like stupid.
Yeah, I don't have a lot invested in that. I mean, the same as you. Like, I don't care a huge amount about Quan. I don't really care about her story arc too much, and that means anything associated with it right now is just kind of falling by the wayside. So, no.
Oh, and I guess I did. There was one thing I guess I wanted to mention. Soren brought up the idea that he killed his dad or something, and that whole aspect raised questions. It's like, so did that happen before he joined the Spartan program? If so, how was he able to join the Spartan program with murder on his resume? I mean, I don't know.
Think they would have cared. Like,
maybe not, because maybe they kidnapped him when they were kids.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're just picking up kids that could be viable. I don't think they had much of a resume check when they were picking them up. Mm-hmm. I mean, they probably looked into some more than others, but they were just wanting test subjects. It looks like, which, that's an
probably
interesting
part of the
story
lore.
to look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I don't think what they're doing is like non-canonical. Like, I think, at least from that standpoint, I am pretty sure that yes, I think it was one of the either Halo movies or Halo games. Where one of the Spartans was talking to Halsey and was like, so you can conscribe kids when they were, super young and turn them into Spartans. So they actually, formally, made note of it. So, I don't know. It's in the lore. I think it is an interesting thing, but I don't know. I don't like how they're playing it out with Chief.
Yeah, alright, so I'll go ahead and move us on to episode 5, where we can just talk about that now. Sheesh, where to start? I mean, the whole, like, the whole scene just is kind of weird. I have it in my notes. Why would you ask Halsey what she thinks of the school just as one of your students almost falls to their death? It's just like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, it's a normal day at school. Maybe you've been to public school lately, Chaz? I mean, that's just, kids are flying off walls.
Why would you have your students climbing trees? They were like climbing. I guess it may. I didn't think about it. Maybe it would make sense. No, I was thinking maybe that would make sense if that was like a training facility made just for Spartan program students. But no, that was just their. That was just their school.
Yeah, they're like what, agriculturalists or something. So
yeah,
a little weird, but whatever.
But yeah, just a couple notes I guess I had. Still dislike Chief. He's kind of a jerk, and I don't know. Same goes for Quan. And I actually had, like you said earlier, I really like the Kai character. I think she's honestly one of the more interesting characters I like in the show. She has what seems to be an actual arc happening, and I don't know. You kind of mentioned that, so I don't know if you have anything more to say.
I agree. I don't know if I have anything else to add. I mean, they're doing with her what I wish they would be. Well, no. Well, I don't know. I just wish Chief wasn't here. I guess is my whole point. Mm-hmm. Like, I like those kind of story beats they're doing with him. And honestly, I would probably like what they're doing with the guy playing Chief if he wasn't Chief. If he was just some other Spartan. But I think with Kai, it's a little more accepting just because it is definitely not Chief. Like, this is just some other Spartan as a blank slate. We can, I think, be a lot more open to it. I think
maybe she should have been the main character.
Maybe. I think that's where the show has really just, I don't know, I think missed the mark is there's a lot, okay, how do I want to say this? There are a lot of places that they could have chosen to adapt, and I probably would have been okay with. Chief is like one of those things that you can't do too much to, I don't feel like, without really changing the feel of Halo. And they did, like, immediately just started tweaking him until he doesn't even resemble the Chief from the games. I know I'm sounding like a broken record because I've said this now every time we talk about this game, but all these other changes they're making, I'd be okay with. Whether the Kai thing is canonical or not, I don't care. I think it's interesting. It doesn't affect what's going on, so that's neat. But every time they make Chief do something weird, like start screaming at an alien through his helmet, like, I'm just like, come on.
Maybe it could have been a really cool thing. I was just thinking for them to do is if the Kai character or maybe another like high-ranking Spartan was the main character, and Chief was like this character that like you rarely got to see, but like every now and then you would hear about his feats or hear about his goings-ons like in the background or on the news stations, or this Spartan constantly hears about what he's doing, and like maybe it could have been cool kind of hearing about him, and then maybe at some point I don't know. Again, we've mentioned it before, but like part of the cool thing about the Chief is that you don't know what he looks like. All you ever see is him in his suit. So maybe
larger than life, like legend in like the lore. Like they've broken him down so much, and I think for the cause of trying to humanize him, that they've taken away the stuff that made Chief. His, his his calm mind, his kind of strategic, flow as he goes through like the battlefield. Like you see some of that, but a lot of it's just been broken down, and I don't know. You lost that larger than life feel that Chief used to have.
Yeah. I guess just kind of blasting through a few more notes I had for this episode. This show is still doing some of the super basic TV show drama stuff I find so annoying. The whole Keyes telling his daughter Miranda why she's off the project, but then still refusing to like let her know why she's off the project. It's like, dude, that's your daughter. Just tell her why she's off the project. Like, they just have to scrap up drama any way they can, I guess.
You're right. Let's just contrive TV, nonsense.
She's a part of like your inner circle of military people, and also she's your daughter. It's like, she should be like the easiest one to tell what's going on. Like I I don't know. I don't like this Keys. I don't mind the Miranda character, actually. I think that might actually be one of my more favorite characters, like Kai. But the Keys, he's kind of douche, and he just doesn't tell anybody anything, and I don't know. I don't like him. I guess we'll move on to the Super Punch, to the Falcon Punch. I honestly feel like that was maybe the most unchief thing the show has done so far. It was just so off-putting seeing a character like the Master Chief. Well, this isn't Chief. I need to stop saying that. That certainly didn't seem becoming of the Master Chief attempting to Superman punch a human character. You know?
Yeah. No, and I already said it. Like, I understand the emotion behind it. Like, if I was in that boat, I'd be pissed, and I'd probably want to, clock her. No, oh man, I should not say that. I'm sorry. I'm not clocking anybody. But you know what I'm saying. Like, I understand the emotion behind that action. Just the fact that it's coming from Chief.
But the Chief seems like the kind of character that would still, like, even though he dislikes Halsey, he very much needs her for this battle. He needs all of her intelligence. She is, like, whether she's evil or not, her technology and her, like, knowledge is what has gotten the UNSC, is what's going to help them in their battle with the Covenant. I would think that's something the Chief would very much constantly think about, you know?
I agree, and that's the thing. Like, Spartans, and especially Chief, are not dumb. Like, they even made like a dumb joke about him in the most recent episode too. Like, there's not much going on up there. But I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. Like, the whole point is these guys are trained not just physically but strategically, like mentally. Like, they have a high intelligence. So you're right. For him to make a brash decision like that seems just very out of place.
If he would have punched her and killed her, their battle with the Covenant would be over. Like, Chief's smart, but he needs Halsey. Like, without Halsey, there is no Spartan program. It's like, I don't know. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's pretty much all I was gonna say.
Again, bad writing. Like, it's something that drums up drama, and I don't mind.
It's that picking and choosing of the lore again. Like, so they expect you to have all this reverence about Spartans because if you play the games, you know how smart they are and how strong they are and how blah blah blah. But then moments like this, they want all that to fly out the window so they can have their little character moment where they show that Chief is emotional and is angry too. Like,
and speaking of that, like you were saying, they're picking and choosing, the whole like Soren getting surprised by Quan in the desert. It's like, really, Soren, former Spartan, didn't see that coming? You just let someone get the jump on him and knock him out like some human character? I don't know. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of move on to the most important part of this episode. The thing everyone was kind of talking about throughout the week is we finally got some Halo action. What did you kind of think? Did you enjoy it? Did you get even an ounce of Halo joy out of it?
Yeah, no, I liked it. I mean, I know I was saying earlier that I like the slower episodes. That doesn't mean I don't like the action episodes. I appreciate when they try to do some character building, even if it's weird. But I liked the action. I thought it looked pretty good. I thought, like the grunts looked good. What are the jackals? They look pretty good. Like,
yeah.
I feel like most from an aesthetic standpoint,
Copyright.
it looked good. The characters moved well. It was visceral. I think you were saying that you thought some of the weapons were a little cheesy. I thought when the needler spikes hit the one dude on the warthog, and he
it was
just
cool.
moved in the mist. I was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I will say this game, not game. I keep saying that. This show surprises me with how brutal it goes. But it makes sense. I mean, it's war.
This your Chief?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I guess here's my thing too. I'm going to say one more thing about this. So like, this is Chief basically off his meds, right? He's off his chip. So how does this end? Do you think they put the chip back in him, or
no?
Does he?
They're not going to do that.
So, man, that's almost harder. Like, how does he become Chief again? Like, once again, I know they're not going this route, but I'm still holding out hope that this Chief becomes my Chief some point. how does he ever get that cool level head back? Like, without them putting that, personality chip back in him, whatever that thing was, I don't think his emotions are just going to disappear and he's all of a sudden going to be just cool with everything.
It
Like, this
also
guy is
annoying
clearly
him.
unhinged.
It was annoying him see him judge Kai too for doing the same thing he did, and I know they kind of like Kai kind of said something and the Cortana kind of backed her up, so they kind of made it seem as though no, yeah, Master Chief is in the wrong here, but it's like no, but still, like you can answer it, you can answer his douchiness all you want, but like he still was a douche in that moment, like, and that is something Chief still wouldn't have done, like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was a very human thing to do. Was it a very Chief thing to do? I don't know. So, no.
There were a couple moments I liked from the battle still. I kind of liked his line where he says, "I know how the game is played, Cortana." That's kind of corny, but I don't know. It didn't bother me.
Cute. Yeah.
It also, I will say, the one thing that did bother me about the battle is why does Chief have to have he had a quip for after doing like everything? It's like that's not when you play the games. Chief doesn't after killing every single thing say something. Like,
what, can I ride this or can I have a ride?
Yeah. It's just like, dude, he didn't need to say that. Like, I don't need Chief to have a quip after he does anything cool,
Yeah.
I guess just the last thing I'll say is just it at least for me had a glimpse of Chief being heroic. Chief Chief going out of his way to try and protect Kai, even though I guess maybe it doesn't make sense because he was kind of deserted his main mission, but I don't know, that felt heroic at least in a way. How did you feel?
So and you're not the only person I think has mentioned this, that he felt more heroic here, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I have never really looked at Master Chief like a hero, at least not like in the traditional sense. Like, I have always looked at him like a soldier who's doing his duty. And don't get me wrong, that is a heroic thing, but if I think back to like the games, you don't see him very often just sacrifice himself to save somebody or something like that.
There definitely were missions though in the original games where he had specific missions of saving people.
But were they orders, or was it him going out of his way to save them for his own volition?
Ooh, that's an interesting. They may have been orders. I didn't think about that. That's my thing.
Like, he rescued a lot of people. Did he go out and save them? Like, I think about it even in Halo Infinite, like with the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
That pilot was like, "Hey, we need to get out of here. I need help. I need to do this." And Chief's like, "I don't care about you. I have a mission." Mm-hmm. He just completely blew off the guy. To be fair, he did save him later, but it was after a lot of time of I don't know.
Because I was just thinking of the mission I remember for saving.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm dying over here.
The one mission I remember about him saving people was in the very first game. I remember when you first get on the ring, there's one mission towards the end of his first main mission on the ring. As I remember, there's all these pillars, and you had to wait for pelicans to drop one by one and pick up all these soldiers. But I do think maybe those were like Cortana. Maybe she was like, "Chief, we need to save these soldiers." You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that Chief doesn't do heroic things or can't be a hero. I'm not sure how much of that is like a character trait, though, if that makes sense. Like, he is very duty bound, which is part of the whole Spartan training thing. Like, he does what he's told to do. So the moments when he doesn't follow that is when it's most impactful. Like when he doesn't, destroy Cortana in the games when he should, stuff like that. Like,
and maybe in the oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say maybe in the last few Halo games, it feels like he's allowed to be more heroic because the UNSC is like dismantled. So he's basically not taking orders from, like, if you think about it, Infinite, there is no UNSC. It's just Chief doing his best to save the galaxy.
No, there's a UNSC. That's all the forward operating bases he's setting up.
Yeah, but he doesn't have anyone giving him directions other than the Cortana thing.
Yeah, but it was coming right off of when, like, what was it, the pillar of whatever just blew up. The UNSC is still a thing. Like they are, broken at that point, but it's not like UNSC is dissolved in that universe. Like I don't know. As far as I know, there's still a structure there. Like there might be some lines of communication that are down, but he still has people above him that I think would give him orders if need be. I don't know. I'm probably going off on a point now that probably doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on this show, but I thought it was interesting that we're looking at Chief to have these heroic moments, but honestly, that's not a character trait I'm looking for in Chief. That's one of the things that I think doesn't help make him more like Chief. I mean, it does make him more human, I suppose, because when he cares about his teammate. And I'm not saying he wouldn't do something like that, but I don't know if the Chief from... I don't know, that's what I'm trying to think of. The Chief from the games that I know, would he have jumped off and saved Kai? Or would he have gotten that artifact there first? I think the Chief from the games would have done both. He only would have sacrificed the artifact, or he only would have went to go save Kai if he already had a plan to get that artifact over there. Because I feel like he would have focused on the objective first.
That's fair enough. I agree with you. The Chief in the games probably would have tried to do both.
Not that he didn't try to do both here, but he didn't have a solid plan to make that artifact, get where it needs to be. It looks like he kind of just abandoned that and then tried to clean up when it was done. And I feel like, Chief from all the games was always about, finishing the mission, finishing the fight. Like that was his, and that his Spartan team, like any members he had up to that point going to those original trilogy, they had died, or they had left, or he had to abandon them. I don't know why, but I know he had like a blue team or something in the books. So I don't know. I'm going
that's true. A lot of his fellow Spartans died or dead. There are many of them.
And like even going through Infinite, you find all these bodies of dead Spartans, and he doesn't seem too broken up about it. Like I don't know.
He does. I mean, he has sad moments where he's like, very, very much soldiery.
I guess. I don't know. And once again, we're comparing two different Chiefs now. I guess I just still keep wondering, okay, how does this Chief get to the Chief in Halo Infinite? How does he evolve to that? Or how does he evolve to even the Chief in Halo 1, which is not that far around the corner from where this show is at. Like, this show is leading up to... I mean, they're almost acting like they're going to lead up to the first Halo, which that's going to be weird because the Fall of Reach should happen before that. So maybe it will coincide somehow.
Well, because Reach is still standing, so yeah, they kind of have to.
I mean, I believe, and I could be wrong on my lore here, I think like at the Fall of Reach, that's when they shoot off Master Chief from the pillar, and it's supposed to take like a random jump somewhere, and then based upon information Cortana has, she pops him up right in front of the ring. So she changes from a random jump to ending up at the Halo. So maybe that's still how this will end, but if that's the case, we're not that far off from that happening. I mean... even if it's a year in showtime, I don't see how this Chief gets to that Chief that launches onto that first Halo.
No.
At least not from the Chief I know. And I'm going to have a hard time seeing this Chief go through the motions of the first Halo game.
Well, fair enough. I guess my last thought would just be it was kind of cool seeing a Brood at the end. It looked really cool. CG looked kind of similar to like maybe one of the games or like Infinite. That's pretty neat. Seeing a Brute, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, I don't think the CG in the show looks bad most of the time. So the animations of the CG can look a little wonky, but the actual models and like how they kind of play out on screen usually look pretty good.